Hello and welcome to another episode of the James Granström podcast Super Soul Model series. Today's episode is, are you setting healthy boundaries? Hello and welcome back to another podcast. This show is designed to help uplift, inspire you and help you tune in to your natural state of well-being. And that's done using your mind, body and soul. Today's topic is all about how to set healthy boundaries up for yourself. Setting healthy boundaries essentially sends a message to other people. When you have healthy boundaries, it means that you respect yourself, creates self-confidence, and it means that you value your time. Your time is your most precious commodity. And when you set healthy boundaries, you realize that protecting your own time and protecting your own precious energy is probably one of the greatest things you can do. Because if you just allow yourself to say yes to absolutely everything like Jim Carrey did in the film Yes Man, what that does is it creates zero discretion for you. And discretion is one of the things that we need to learn as human beings. The ability to say yes when we mean yes and no when we mean no. And what's super important about setting healthy boundaries is that when you appreciate yourself, when you respect yourself, other people too will respect and appreciate you. Because when you respect your precious time and energy, which is your greatest commodity, other people will do that for you and they will value you and know that you value yourself. And that means that they won't overstep the mark. Because as human beings, when you say yes to everything, people will always keep trying to take advantage of you. But until you learn to say no, until you say, this is my cutoff point, this is a no for me, or this is my boundary on this, and this is how I do this, and that's not how I do this, then what you're doing is you're being extremely clear with the universe, which means you're in your clarity of what you will and won't accept. And it also means you're doing that with other people as well. And your relationships, the quality of your relationships depend on the quality of your life. And if you have wonderful relationships, because you're taking time to set healthy boundaries, not only with other people, but with what you value, the quality of your life is going to improve too. And that means that the stress will be reduced in your life and well-being will be increased. And it's just this simple art of knowing what you will and won't accept in your life, when your cutoff point is for certain things, which I'm going to discuss in a little bit. So when you set healthy boundaries, what happens is you start to send a signal, as I've said, to other people, which says that you take good care of yourself. When you set healthy boundaries, what it means is that your time, your energy is precious and you don't want to spend it on anything that doesn't help you feel better. The reason why you want to set healthy boundaries is because of this. It's protecting your precious time and energy, which is your greatest commodity. The second reason is it shows your level of self-worth. When you have a high level of self-worth, it means that you respect and appreciate your time. You respect and appreciate yourself so much that you're not going to do that, whatever that might be. It shows that you have deservability, which means you deserve the best and you only accept the best, and all the things that don't matter to you, you don't give your attention to and you don't turn up to. So for instance, if you're asked to go to a function that doesn't light you up, that is a soul debit, so to speak, I mean, it's not doing anything for your soul, it's not doing anything for, you feeling great in the long run, there's no point going to that. When you set healthy boundaries, it shows your level of self-worth and deservability. And when you demonstrate that from saying yes to certain things and no to other things, the no might be, I'm not going to that function, that's doing nothing for me, or I'm not going to the pub, that's not doing anything for me, or I'm not going to hang around those people right now because they're not taking me up and they're doing things that don't make me feel great and that's not where I want to go now. What you're saying is no to things that don't serve you and yes to things that serve you. And when you start to get clearer on that, that's what you broadcast out into the world. When you set healthy boundaries, you create a level of self-respect other people begin to notice. When you set healthy boundaries, people know not to cross your line. And so other people won't do that anymore. So for instance, with me, when I used to go out and party really hard, when I stopped, what happened was people stopped asking me to go and do those activities that weren't helping me anymore in line with my health and well-being anymore, because I said, no, I'm not going to do that. And it's amazing that people stopped asking me to go and do those behaviors that I used to do. Whereas if you are in that level of like, I'm trying to get away from that, you have to create these boundaries for yourself, because these boundaries are invisible lines in which people know not to cross, because this is your new intentions. This creates self-respect, but it also requires you to be able to speak up and communicate clearly with others when to say no. When you're setting healthy boundaries, it creates a higher level of happiness for you. It's way easier to be happy because you know what you will and won't accept. Essentially, life and the quality of your life will also depend on how happy you are, and you become happier when you feel free and unlimited. And when you do things that you love to do, then that feels great. But when you do things you really hate to do because you're trying to people please someone else, and it feels like it's a soul debit on your heart, you know, when you go and do something you don't want to do, maybe it's going to a function you really don't want to go to, and it's not serving you in any possible way, or you're spending time with people who are taking you down, or you're watching movies that don't ignite your soul, or you're spending time, you know, just doing things that are unwholesome and don't help you anymore. What that does is that depletes your energy. Your life's just going to improve so much when you set healthy boundaries, because people know that, number one, you're happy because you have the ability to say yes and the ability to say no. And when you say no, you really mean it. And people really, really admire other people who do that, because it means that they are giving permission for other people to also create self-respect. So if you're ever feeling super overwhelmed, then it's absolutely paramount that you're setting boundaries. If you're feeling overwhelmed, it means you've got too much to do, too little time, and it also means that you are not giving too much to yourself. When you give to yourself and you say no to everybody and make yourself a priority, what that does is it sends signals out not only to you but to the world, to the universe, that you matter. In my household when I was growing up, my mum's an super people pleaser. Mothers always tend to be people pleasers because they care so much for their kids. And that's what as a child, you'll pick that up and you'll try to say yes, 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 and overgive. But that will always backfire, making you end up resenting people, making you feel overwhelmed, stressed, anxious, and the rest of it. And when you learn to say yes and you learn to say no, and you create this cut-off point for you if people are trying to get so much from you at the end of the day, you're going to notice that when you create these boundaries for yourself, people know what line not to cross. One of the things I've had recently, since my father's passed, me and my sisters have been amazing at trying to work through all the assets in the different countries, trying to sort things out. And there's a lot of admin to do. So much admin, it's almost overwhelming. But you just have to take one little step at a time. And one of the things I noticed was that towards the end of the day, out of my cut-off point that I say to my sisters is, don't call me after 8:30. I'm not interested, because I'm not going to be able to do any work. My head is tired, my body is tired. There's nothing more that I want to do except for relax. So you've got to find out what your cut-off point is and tell other people. So for instance, with me, when it comes to dealing with the family business, and I know it's a priority to try and get everything sorted to take care of my mum in the process of the transition from my father having died, all the paperwork that's required is like so much when someone dies. But what I've noticed is that you really need to say to other people what's important to you when your cut-off point time is, because when you do, it means that you say to other people, hey, I've had enough, that I'll speak to you tomorrow. And as long as you say that and you mean it, and you do it with respect and care with other people, people will cherish that. People will honor that. Because if you don't tell people your boundaries, if you don't tell people what matters to you, if you don't tell people that your time is worth it, your energy is worth it, you know, you're just going to allow people to just step on you. And that is where people start to feel inferior. That's where people start to feel unworthy and deserving and not enough. And this is almost like a virus within itself, a mind virus that goes out into the world and is all over the world. A lot of people don't feel good enough. And one of the reasons they don't feel good enough or deserving enough is because they don't give themselves enough self-respect. They don't give themselves healthy boundaries. I loved Matthew McConaughey's speech, Oscar speech. In it, he talked about, one of the things that my parents demanded of me was self-respect, not only to respect myself, but to respect others. And that is a huge sign. That's a huge sign to me that someone has healthy boundaries, and those healthy boundaries will create not only a healthy mind, but a healthy body and a healthy outlook. And the better you feel and the better your life's going to get is all based on making sure that one of the things that you have in place is super healthy boundaries with other people, because you've got to learn the discretion of when to say no. You've got to learn to say, this is the line I do not accept, because you get what you settle for. If you're constantly saying yes to things that really aren't lighting you up, haven't got your heart, then what you're doing is you're cutting yourself off from this infinite energy. You're cutting yourself off from your self-respect. You're cutting yourself off from your well-being. Until you learn to say no on things that don't matter anymore, then what's going to happen is you're going to create more resistance in yourself, and you're going to begin to blame other people. You always have to take responsibility for everything that's happening in your life based on your communication and based on the boundaries that you're setting. When you communicate clearly with others, and you're able to clearly communicate what your boundaries of what you will and won't accept, people won't cross that line with you anymore, because they know that you respect yourself, that you believe in yourself, they know that you are worthy and deserving, and then it sends shock signals to them to go, golly, I need to do that then. Because a lot of people don't do that. So learn and become one of those people who is very clear and communicative with other people to let them know what you will and won't accept. I remember when I used to just say yes to everything because I had serious fear of missing out when my partying days and things like that. It just caused me so much anxiety. I felt like I was completely reacting to life, to literally everything, and I had no clarity. I had no self-respect for certain things, and it just means that my life was chaotic. And it was chaotic until I got organized. One of the things that really helped me was learning discernment, when to say yes, when to say no. That discernment was huge for me in helping me tune into a natural state of well-being. When you learn to say no, it does get a lot easier. I remember recently, before my father passed away, I was having to drive around doing so many errands for him, and he was in the car and he said, can you do this, then this? And on the last one, which just suddenly, I was literally at the end of my tether, he said, can you do this? I was like, no, I'm not doing that. And it gave me such freedom. It was almost as if I was kept on being tested. And that discernment to say, do you know what? I don't want to do that. I'm not doing that. That gave me freedom, and that could give you freedom. Learn discernment. Choose to say no when it matters to you, because setting boundaries with other people creates respect and it creates freedom. Because when you suddenly feel free because you say no about not doing something that someone's asking you to do, because people are going to take the mickey, people are going to try and overstep with you, what's going to happen is this energy, this natural energy inside of you is just going to shoot back up. You're going to feel free and you're going to feel less resistance. And bingo, you've realized that life is working out for you because you started to honor yourself. And that is key. One of the boundaries that I have in my life is I don't go out unless I really, really want to. I don't go out in the evening unless I really want to. Obviously, this is more pre-COVID, but my time is precious. In the evening, I like to wind down. In the evening, I like to listen to music or watch a good movie or read, and that is my time for me. And so many times people have asked me to do this, and this, and I'm just like, no, I'm not doing that. And it becomes so much more liberating. And I think that's one of the reasons why I've been able to keep myself so well for such a long period of time, is because when I feel resistance, it is very clear for me to go, I'm not doing that. And those subtle feelings of when it lights me up, it feels like a hell yeah, I want to do that. Boom, that's excitement. But when I'm like, I learn that feeling. And from that discernment of those feelings, that resistance of that's not lighting me up, I don't go ever, because I know when I follow that path, it's going to lead me down a road I don't want to go. That's going to make me end up resenting that evening and feel upset with myself that I didn't listen to that inner guidance. And so when you listen to your inner guidance, you're going to be able to hear it more clearly when it presents itself next time. So setting boundaries with other people, setting healthy boundaries with other people, is going to allow you to listen to that inner voice within inside, which is guiding you towards what is good for you. One of the things in relationships I think is really important is if you're starting out in a new relationship, tell your partner what you do and don't accept, or how you live your life. That I think that's super important. One of the things I said to my partner when we first started dating was, I meditate every single day. And when I meditate, I do it like first thing in the morning. So just so you know, that's what I do. And, whether you choose to accept that or not, that's up to you. But that's just how I roll. I love it when people say what they love to do and they let their partner know, because that means that this is what they love in life. This is what they value. And this is a boundary that you set, a healthy boundary. These are my healthy habits. These are my healthy boundaries. So this is what I love to do, and this is part of me. This is how I love to live. So if you make music late at night, or you're creative, or this is what I love to do, as long as it's helping you, these are healthy boundaries. I mean, if I go out to the pub every single night, that's what I do. Is that a healthy boundary? No, because you're not investing in the relationship. But when you're investing in yourself for something that's going to make you feel better, like maybe it's some exercise, or maybe it's meditation, or maybe it's creativity, this uplifts a relationship. This brings value to a relationship. And these are healthy boundaries set when you tell them and communicate clearly with the people that you care about, who are close to you, and create healthy habits. When you set healthy boundaries, you set healthy habits in place. So when it comes to like finances, this is a really interesting one. If you are self-employed or you run your own business, you need to be super clear about what you will and won't accept. That's why people say make payment within 14 days. And if the payment is not made in 14 days, it means you've got to follow them up in the meantime. In fact, sometimes I wait a week or so just to follow up. I'm just going, look, I'm still waiting on that payment. Please make sure that payment's done. So when you do that and you're clear about your boundaries, which is this payment needs to be made within this day, it means that, and you follow up halfway through, maybe in 7 days' time, you've given people enough notice, but you signed a kind, gentle reminder that the invoice needs to be paid. That is self-respect in place. That's why businesses that are really great are the ones that follow up. They have self-care, they have self-respect, and it's just great business. You always prefer to speak to the people who are follow up, because they're on it, they're efficient, and they get back to you when they say they do. This is a healthy boundary, and this is a healthy habit to have in place. How can you set up more healthy boundaries in place for you? You can set up more healthy boundaries by saying no when you mean it and yes when you mean it. And by having cut-off points in your day where you tell people clearly, just so you know, I've got an appointment at 11. So if you're on a phone call beforehand, sorry, I need to get off at 10:45, just so you know. And you let them know at the beginning. When you let people know what your intentions are, and just so you know, I've got 45 minutes on this call and I'm giving myself 15 minutes at the end of this call, and you let them know, by the way, I've got another 5 minutes, it's 10:40, just so you know. Each time you tell people what your intents are, and by the way, I'm leaving at 10:45, and you act on that, you create self-respect, not only for yourself, but for other people, to know that they won't overstep you. How else can you set a healthy boundary? By making sure you let other people know what time you will and won't accept a phone call at night. If you're texting people like at 12 a.m, to me, that says you've got little self-respect, because that time before bed is precious. That energy that you expend before bedtime is precious, because you want your mind to be settled down and relaxing. You want to be able to be settling down for the best possible night's sleep, so you get the best investment of hitting those deeper levels of sleep, so you wake up and feel refreshed tomorrow. So if you're texting at that time at night, for me, I'm a bit like, you need to reset and rethink what your boundaries are, because people will text you in the middle of the night if you are texting at that time. So start to have a little self-care, little self-respect, and think about what's important to you, because every time you have a good night's sleep, you're going to feel way better tomorrow. And so when you set healthy boundaries about the time that you go to bed and getting yourself into some good habits and some good rituals, I guarantee your life is going to feel happier and healthier. You're going to have way more energy and you're going to feel great. And it feels worse when you ignore those telltale signs. The only person who can truly understand any of this is you, with your own experience. You've got to learn when to say yes, when to say no, and start putting some healthy boundaries in place so that you respect yourself. That self-respect creates more freedom. That freedom creates more energy. That energy creates greater happiness in your life and greater well-being and less stress. Loads of people are stressed because we're bombarded with so much information, and your natural energy is so important that you've got to choose what you want in your life and when that cutoff point is for you interacting with other people, particularly at nighttime. And another way of how you can create setting healthy boundaries is by communicating clearly what your needs are to other people. When you communicate your needs with other people in a calm tone, your life becomes so much better. That calmness, that energy of which you're exuding from that space of asking for help when you need it, and letting people know what, that this is my line, these are my boundaries, this is how I roll, this is how I live my life, these are my habits. People honor that and people respect that. But sometimes needy people come into your experience and they're trying to get energy from you, like energy vampires in some way, because they're trying to fill a void. But when you don't answer a phone call because it feels like resistance, what that does is saying, look, I know right now that if I answer that phone, that is not going to be a productive phone call. That's why, for me, I always answer the phone when I feel great. And when I feel panic driven, and that happens to me sometimes, when I feel like I feel completely overwhelmed or frustrated, I do not pick up the phone. It seems the most irresponsible thing sometimes, I'm sure, even though I run a business. But when I don't answer that phone because I'm in that state of mind where I'm like, I feel overwhelmed or frustrated, I know that that boundary that I've set myself is a healthy one, because I know and I care so much about my interactions that I want to be in the best possible state of mind to pick up that phone call or to answer that email. And so I've said it before on other podcasts, but think about your energy. Your energy is precious, and when you pick up a phone call or type an email, make sure you're doing it from a calm space of mind, because otherwise it's highly unproductive. When you set that healthy boundary with yourself, other people will so appreciate what's on the other end, which is your alignment, a version of you that's in alignment and in natural state of well-being. You never want to deal with people who are erratic, because you never get the best out of them. Be someone who's the example of someone who's tuned into, this wonderful energy of well-being. And you do that by setting those boundaries of saying, I'm going to do this when I feel good, and I'm not going to do it when I don't feel good, because I know it's going to be highly unproductive. And it just takes you about 10 or 15 minutes to get feeling good again before you make that phone call. Because if you pick up that phone call in the panic, that's what's going to be on the other end. Because essentially, remember, what's coming out from you is what's coming back. And when you set healthy boundaries with yourself, that's what's coming back. Another way in which you can create healthy boundaries is sometimes just stepping away from a position of a lot of resistance. If you are in an environment, people are shouting at one another, just step away. That's a boundary that you set. I respect myself so much, I'm not going to be around this hostile environment because I know it's not conducive to my health and well-being. That idea in itself is where you're protecting your precious time and energy. And when you do that, you're going to have a greater sense of freedom, and life's just going to improve, and you're going to feel happier and healthier. I hope you've enjoyed the show. If you like the show, please give it a like, please give it a thumbs up, and please leave a review on whatever platform you're listening on. Thanks as always for listening to the show, and I wish you green lights all the way.